If you're trying to create the next generation of entrepreneurs, the next generation of idea people, actually, you don't need to teach them anything about business or very, very little. The act of creation is pretty innate. You're always trying to make something slightly better. And if you look at the world through that perspective or that lens, you will always find ideas and ways to make the world better. Everything around you can be better.
I'm Amy Jo Martin. Welcome to the Why Not Now show. You know that thing you've been thinking about doing? Yeah, that one. Why not now? Have you ever actually taken the time to ask yourself, what's stopping me? Let's talk it through. This is your chance to give that idea the attention it deserves and take action. Each episode, I have a chat with a fascinating person, from entrepreneurs to athletes, celebrities, my parents, rocket scientists, and all walks of life. We talk through a critical time when they've asked themselves, why not now? We dissect that day or even that moment, step by step.
Just let go.
We are in for a sweet treat today, literally. Jeni Britton Bauer from Jeni's Ice Cream is joining us on the show. Jeni has been recognized by Fast Company as one of the most creative people in business today. She dropped out of Ohio State after she mixed cayenne essential oil in her chocolate ice cream. And she realized that ice cream is the perfect carrier of scent. Well, then she went on to create an ice cream empire. She has created so many unique flavors. She has collaborated with even Dolly Parton on her own flavor. But we don't just talk about ice cream during this conversation. We get into the other good stuff, the hard stuff, and how Jeni was able to navigate during a huge recall that really took her business back to ground zero, and she had to rebuild. Jeni also talks about her own transformation in her life and how she said, quote, "You have to break yourself in order to know where your boundaries are." Jeni's been at the ice cream game and the entrepreneurship game for quite a while, and she's learned a thing or two. One of the things that she's learned is that she has earned her instinct. So over time, it's gotten better and better and better. And that goes for all of us. How we can realize, you know what, we've earned this instinct. One of the things I appreciate about Jeni is that she's creative first and entrepreneur second. And she looks at ice cream and business as a way of expressing her creativity. Without further ado, here is the Jeni behind Jeni's Ice Cream. Jeni, welcome to the Why Not Now show. Thank you so much for joining. And in the spirit of Why Not Now, let's hop in. Can you tell me about a time when you had a big decision to make and you had to ask yourself, why not now? We'll dissect that day, minute, hour, season, and kind of reverse engineer how you went from idea to action.
Hi, I'm so excited to do this. This is so much fun. And I think in some ways this is the sort of creative spirit is always trying to find when the idea is good enough to act on, and you're always like asking that question. As an ice cream maker and as a person who's devoted literally my entire life, 26 years now, to ice cream, I would love to go back and talk about this moment when I first made ice cream. It changed, or my ice cream, and how that moment really shifted my whole trajectory. And that was in 1995 or early 1996. I had this idea. I was actually studying scent kind of as a hobby. I had a friend who was a perfumer from Paris working in the chemistry department at Ohio State University. I was at Ohio State studying art. and art history. And I worked at a French bakery and I loved all of these things. And I had sort of decided that I was really good at scent and that I should try to incorporate scent into art because it was a sensory experience that was kind of overlooked.
Okay. This is innovative already.
Yeah. And, I was just like trying to figure things out. I was like, should I be a pastry chef? Should I be an artist? Should I be an art teacher like my grandmother? Should I, pursue history or whatever? I mean, it's just taking every class that interested me at Ohio State. So it was a lot of different things. And I was just trying to figure out what I was going to do. And so basically doing everything that I wanted to do, everything that filled up, that was exciting for me. And those are the kind of three things. I was thinking about pastry a lot, making things. And I liked, eating pastries, and they're French pastries and sort of, good quality stuff, and art. And then when I met Julian, my friend who was in the chemistry department, he introduced me to scent, and I got really deep with that. I was like, just, how can scent be used to tell stories and transport people? And clearly, and I started reading books on it, and I started to understand that like scent is actually like so close to your brain. Your olfactory will like literally transport you the moment you smell something. And I was always very connected to my sense of smell. Kind of knew that because I'd grown up going to the forest every weekend, and I was very connected to that. So it was something that just resonated with me. And I was collecting like essential oils and various scent compounds, and I was even cooking with them. And so I had a whole drawer full of those. And one day I was going to a dinner party, and I was like, what can I take to this dinner party? And I had this idea to blend one of my essential oils, actually two of them. One was a cayenne essential oil, which actually doesn't have a scent. It's funny. It actually is only heat on your tongue. So I thought I'm going to blend that into chocolate ice cream. I'll make like a hot chocolate. And then I'm going to take one drop of my really expensive $400 an ounce Bulgarian rose petal and mix that into a vanilla bean ice cream. So I bought ice cream and mixed them together.
Okay. Like just ice cream from the grocery store.
Yeah. It was like Haagen-Dazs, chocolate and vanilla. And then I made a Bulgarian rose vanilla and a hot spicy chocolate ice cream. And I took those to the dinner party. But what happened was I softened them. I mushed the essential oil in. I, took a bite. And because I had been studying scent and like how, like history of scent and how historical perfumers worked, they use fats that are solid at room temperature, but liquid on contact with the body. They have low melting points, or melting points lower than, body temperature. Because I knew that, I immediately understood the potential of ice cream as a carrier of scent, and that even an inexpensive synthetic vanilla is, you could consider it an edible perfume. And that changed everything for me. And it literally was a moment where everything converged in my life that I was interested in. And I was able to recognize it because I had been pursuing all the stuff that I loved. So in that like moment, just flooded in. Ice cream can be so much more than it is. Ice cream can actually be about the ice cream, not just about like the chunks that you add to it, but about the actual ice cream. And there is so much potential to make it better. And if I can, what is the potential of that? It was the immediate question. And then that leads to vision.
So you're getting ready for the dinner party and this happens while you're mixing it and you're just like, holy shit. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. I mean, it literally was like a drug or like an epiphany or I didn't want to go to the dinner party anymore. Like I just wanted to get to work.
Yeah. Okay. This is like, talk about a why not now moment. Then did you talk about it? What was your very next step?
Well, I did go to the dinner party. I went to the event.
Did everybody like it, or
everybody went crazy for it?
Good.
And so it confirmed what I was experiencing, which is that ice cream can be so much more interesting. And I think what I maybe didn't realize too is like how animated the moment of ice cream could be. And I have since now 26 years later, I see this everywhere because every time I bring out the ice cream, like people are feeding each other, reaching across the table, diving in, it becomes a very animated moment after even like a sleepy dinner. The ice cream becomes this moment because people see themselves in ice cream. There's a whole thing about that. And also I didn't mention that I had worked at an ice cream shop. I mean,
I saw that. Like
always loved ice cream. So understanding how people use ice cream and interact with ice cream, I already sort of got that, which was one of the reasons I was able to identify this, like, okay, this is special.
Interesting. And first time entrepreneur. I mean, you're young, you probably had never started a company before. Was that it sounds like the passion and the interest and the like just fire was pretty darn strong. Did you go into figure it out mode, or what was it like to kind of then put on your I need to learn business hat?
Well, I will say that I was raised by an artist grandmother and kind of a doer, home economist, neighborhood connector grandmother. Those two women became me. You know, Enid, the artist, would show me how to do something. Like, I don't know, we always had a project. So we might weave baskets out of weeds. We literally go pick weeds in the ditch, dye them or dry them, and then dye them and make baskets out of them. But then my other grandmother, Betty, would be like, this is really cool. Let's make 10 of them and sell them. And so the idea is like, I've always connected creativity and even art with this idea of entrepreneurship. And I always loved the process of recreating something. So whereas Enid would only want to make one, like something beautiful once, and then she wanted to make something else, something different. I actually liked, from the very young age, I liked to replicate that exact thing so that you couldn't tell which one was first and which one was last, right? So if we made 10 of them, you wouldn't be able to know. And if we had 3 people working on them, you wouldn't know who did what. So I always thought that was really cool. That's like the process of creation and building something, especially when it comes to like,
what's the scale.
And business versus, or entrepreneurship, I would say, versus art. But so I'd always known, and for me too, since I was a kid, the idea of freedom was really, really important to me. I was like, ADHD, people would call me impulsive, and I would just be like, no, I'm also just creative and impatient and like curious, like that's a plus for me, but like, that wasn't how the world perceived it. So I always felt like I just wouldn't survive in corporate America. Like there was no question to me I was going to be in a creative field. And I definitely incorporated entrepreneurship into creative fields. Like that way that I've always approached it to this day, entrepreneurship is actually very different from business. It's much more from the art perspective and much more from that creative co-creation, active creation perspective. So yes, the answer is yes, I did. I just I just started diving in and trying to figure it out. And I did believe in myself to be able to do that. Maybe because I was young enough that the stakes there just weren't any stakes. But I mean, I walked out of art class. I literally a model walked in. I never liked drawing. And it was a 3-hour class. I knew I was just going to be sitting there thinking about ice cream and bored. And it was going to be painful for me, especially with somebody who's impulsive like I am, somebody who just can't, I don't like being bored. I don't like that. So I got up and walked out, and I left everything there, all of my art supplies and everything, and went home and made ice cream. And 6 months later, I opened a little shop in the market. We have an indoor public market, and I was able to get a space there.
I think what's interesting too is a creative entrepreneur, and you had Betty, right? You had your learnings from Betty, which that's pretty incredible that you had these 2 grandmothers that were able to be a part of this formula and what they taught you. How do you keep those creative juices flowing when you're running this business that's, it's got to have some structure, so on and so forth. But over the years, have there been times where you just feel like, gosh, I'm not in the zone. I don't have as much creative spirit or ideas. And then if you do, how do you get back?
I think that, first of all, I'm in the right job. I love what I do, and I'm never out of ideas ever for ice cream. There's just, as soon as I feel like we just, this is the best that will ever happen, and there will just never be another one. And I almost feel like that a little bit this year, because we've just done so many cool flavors this year that resonated with people. There's always the next idea. There's always a shift in culture or something cracks open that you can get into and create from that space. There's always something that hits, that happens, that you can kind of riff off of. And I will also say that being from the art perspective, and I actually think this is, one of the sort of flags that I will just plant or stakes that I will put out, or boundaries that I will put up, or whatever it is, and just say that I think the pendulum is way too far over on the business side of teaching entrepreneurship. I actually think entrepreneurship and business are completely different. Business is important, but business is a structure of disciplines that anyone can learn. I mean, you can learn them. You can also bring them in. Yeah. And so if you're trying to create the next generation of entrepreneurs, the next generation of idea people, actually, you don't need to teach them anything about business, or very, very little, because a lot of that is innate. A lot of it is innate. I mean, the act of creation is pretty innate. You're always trying to make something slightly better. And if you look at the world through that perspective or that lens, you will always find ideas and ways to make the world better. Everything around you can be better. And then if you add a layer to that and say, well, what's the value of that? Well, that's entrepreneurship. How can I trade? How will somebody trade me money or something else for that if I can create that for them? And if the answer is yes, that's an idea, right? That's an idea that's a viable idea. So when I think of what my role is in the company and how I interact and engage with the company now, I still go back to I always joke that my favorite business book is actually the Lord of the Rings movies, because I think of building a company. I also say there's company and then there's business, right? I'm building a company, not a business, right? Company means you're not alone. That's the word means you're not alone. So I think of fellowship in the way that Tolkien outlined fellowship, which is everybody brings in their awesomeness fully. And then together we create something greater than the sum of our parts. We're united by a vision quest, a mission, or whatever. And then together we create something greater than the sum of our parts. So knowing where you fit in on your fellowship is really important. And I know that my role is people, it's customers, it's creativity, it's, for flavors, it's how we write about and communicate our flavors. It's what we make and who we are. And so if I can focus on that deeply and have full trust that there is somebody else taking care of operations, there's somebody else taking care of finance, there's somebody else taking care of HR and keeping us safe and legal and all that stuff. And we come together once a week or once a month or whatever it is to realign and understand and make sure that this is also still going forward and working. We're still on our quest. That's the definition to me of company. So you can think about it in a slightly different way or in a more fantastical way or a way that uses your imagination a little bit more. And you don't have to think about it just solely through the lens of business. But I think that ultimately our objectives can be the same. We still want to grow. We still want to be efficient. We don't want to waste stuff. Creativity is efficiency, in fact, because the most creative person is the one that can do the most with the least. In any field. And so it's funny how you can get to the same place, but from two completely different perspectives. And I would say in company and business are two different perspectives, but often lead to the same place.
We're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back. Are you ready to 10x the way you think and execute? If you're a driven female entrepreneur or corporate leader who is ready to execute your ideas and grow your personal brand while generating more revenue, the Renegade Accelerator is for you. In this 8-week program, I'll teach you everything I've learned over the past 20 plus years in business. You'll soar in the areas of public speaking, personal branding, podcasting, partnerships, book publishing, wealth creation, and so much more. It's equal parts education, collaboration, and accountability. If you want to learn more about how this program can accelerate your career and life, head to renegadeaccelerator.com and sign up to receive emails for more information. Don't miss out on the next open enrollment, so make sure you sign up, because if not now, then when? And if not you, then who? Why not now? Hi, everyone. If you are digging this podcast, please do us a favor and subscribe, rate, and review on iTunes. It just takes a moment and it means a ton to us. I love that difference between company and business, and that you're not alone. Company meaning company, the exact meaning. How do you invest in yourself?
Well, it took first of all, knowing what I'm here to do, just naming that, is important. This is what I do. This is what I spend time reflecting on. This is how I'm growing, just knowing what that is. And I'm not necessarily, though I want to be informed about other things, I'm not necessarily trying to do that, because you can't be everything to everybody and you can't do everything. So just naming and putting a bubble around what it is that I do or you do, is so important, because then you can nurture that. And also I hope are in a place that feels good for you and right for you and is inspiring to you and speaks to your passion. But I will also say, as a person who has overdone it, who's pushed myself too far. It's not an adventure unless it hurts. I'm always in my sci-fi and fantasy. But honestly, you do have to break yourself to know where your boundaries are. And I have broken myself in pursuing this. And a lot of times that break doesn't come on in one fierce, fiery moment. It's a slow build. And then one day you wake up and you realize you're atomized, like you're a zombie, you're not human, and actually maybe even close to death. I mean, like that was for me 2 years ago. I just had tried to be too much for too many people. And I got, my being got diluted in that way. And I stopped understanding who I was. And so I got that back. Actually, I made up my own way to heal on that.
Was there a why not now moment somewhere in there where it's like, warning sign, big red flashing lights? I've been there too. And it was like, purpose problem, the universe. What was that like when you were at this point where, you're realizing, okay, this is a boundary because I'm feeling like I've broken it.
I don't think I was fully aware of it. I was sort of aware. I was aware that like I was feeling instinctively like I needed to go one way. And I was getting this sort of, quote, rational thinkers telling me something different.
Okay.
And that had been happening for a while. And I had seen how over and over again, I was proving that my instinct was right. And I read, and that was what was causing it. And I picked up a Walt Whitman's Leaves of Grass. I was actually just looking behind me. I was sitting in front of my bookshelf, one of them. And I have several copies of Leaves of Grass. And I was hoping to find it. But I picked up that book. I love poetry. And I read I Sing the Body Electric, which is one of his Leaves of Grass poems. And it just brought me back into my body. It just brought me back in. All of a sudden, I was like, I may not be 100% right, but there is 0% chance that I'm 100% wrong. Right. And so my body is right. And the reason that I know this, so my life has been about trial and error and trying and failing and action, thinking, doing, repeating, basically is what I say. Think, do, repeat, think, do, repeat. I earned my instinct. It's not just, I'm not a 22-year-old girl anymore with some instinct that this is going to work. I'm 26 years into this. When I have an instinct about something, I need to pay attention to it. Mm-hmm. It's likely at least partially right, and I need to follow it. So for me, that moment of Walt Whitman coming, it's telling me that get back into your body. Your body is actually more truthful than your brain. Mm-hmm. And that was the moment for me where I was like, this is it. I'm taking one step forward, and it's going to be about me, and I'm going to heal myself. I'm going to get the right people around me, because fellowship, again, I go back. I'm always asking for help. That's just me. Put together people bring in people in my life who can help me on this. Get the right books, find the right authors that speak to me. I mean, I'm just surrounded by them now. Not all of them work, but when they did, they were huge for me, and they just got me in the right place. And then start small and build, which is the other thing I say all the time about entrepreneurship, but also about your own personal health. So then for me, it became about 4 realms of existence: your, physical, emotional, mental, and then spiritual. Literally, I always add spiritual to that. So that was when I started getting out to the forest 2 to 3 hours a day to find perspective and to think and to make sure that I had time for myself. And I do that to this day, just always outside, because I think nature helps us get into our bodies. And when you're really in tune, especially after you have had time to discover the knowledge that you're, through your actions, your own knowledge that you hold inside, when you've had time to build that, you have to have time to reflect and go into it regularly. For me, it's nature that helps me do that.
So interesting. So, and you said you've earned your instinct. It's so true. Like you are a master at
Jedi.
Yeah.
You're not in drills anymore. You're not just following what some, other leader did, because I think we are told that you're supposed to act like, whatever leader, and that there's this protocol and this way of doing it. You don't have to do anything the way that somebody else did it. You can do it however works for you. Even if it's wrong, you're going to learn from that. And it's important to build that sense of instinct and to listen to it. And it's emotion, and I think that we, especially as women, but as humans, really, we're taught that emotion is irrational, and it isn't true. I think it can be true early in life because there are a whole bunch of frustrations. You have to learn how to think through and how to get through that. And that's where I mean, like, you've earned your instinct and it's your emotional it's your emotional system that's telling you that. But you do have to, you earn it by building that and listening to it and learning from it over time.
Data. Yeah, really. Mental, physical, and emotional. And so physiologically, when you have an idea, whether it's personal or professional world, I mean, they're all together. Let's be real. But do you ever have physiological cues that help you tune into your tuition or just instinct more? Like, body chills, or are there certain things where when people say, get into your body, and for those who don't even know really what that means, like getting tangible about how do you feel? How can you tell? Like indicators. Let's say you have a flavor and you're like, this is it. And I know because.
I mean, that without question, I know when a flavor is going to do really well if it makes me move. And that is something that you'll see if you ever come to our test kitchen. You'll see we'll take bites of it, and you can't, it does move you. You start like kind of dancing. Your shoulders might go up and down. I mean, you're just like, you want to move. You want to spin around in circles, and like, it becomes more than just, yes, I like this, or no, I don't. When you hit on a flavor, and this is also true of poetry and art and other things too, when you hit on a flavor that is just really good. And actually, even like when you think about good design and composition, it feels good. It feels good in your body, even like a good outfit. If you have too much going on, something feels off, And I think when something feels off, it's not done yet. And it really is like a feeling. So you keep iterating until you feel it, until it feels right. And I often say, the way, it's, you know the way. And that isn't because I can rationalize it in my brain. That's not a linear process. You know the way because all you have to do is ask yourself, does it feel right?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's creative, but it's also in, building a good company and how you use resources and all of those decisions that you have to make.
Because sidebar real quick, because I have to ask. So your Dolly Parton collab, is she as rad as she seems? I've seen her, I've been able to see her perform before, but I mean, was that a home run right out of the gate, or how did you?
Well, I didn't actually get to meet her, but I worked through one of her, her I guess her people, or whatever.
Yeah. Sure.
But when I heard that she loves strawberries, and so do I, and I just knew that we share the Midwest and the South actually have a lot in common with our cultures and foods that we love, and so and church and the way that we think about food, and so I just related to her in that way, and I was like, I think I know like what she would love. And that is that strawberry pretzel pie it was actually a salad that I grew up eating.
Me too.
Like, oh my gosh, it's so good. And I was just like, this is perfect, because in the Midwest and also probably in the South, that would be considered, a fruit or vegetable side dish, but it's
we had a
clearly dessert. And I love that aspect of our culture.
Yeah.
That like in the Midwest, you will be served cinnamon rolls in the bread basket before dinner. You know what I mean? And it's like super buttery cinnamon rolls. Most people would consider that a meal in itself and probably breakfast. But like, nope, this is dinner time and you're in the Midwest, so you get it. It's like, I don't know. And things like that most people would consider dessert are considered a healthy, fruit or vegetable.
I love it.
So I knew she'd love that. I just felt it. And this is another thing, because the same thing happened with Tyler, the creator, when we did our partnership with him, but a couple of times. I just, I feel his energy. I was with him, in person and a few times, and I just got to know his energy, and I knew what was going to work. And when I went back, I knew I made him like 4 flavors, but I knew what he was going to choose. And there's a whole story to that. It wasn't the one that, he like, it was just like, I just knew it. I knew it. And it's not because I could put it in a spreadsheet and, it wasn't rational. In fact, it was very not rational, because I had actually told him I will never work with spearmint. You would hate it, blah, blah, blah. And then I went home and made him a spearmint ice cream, but I was like, this is the one, he's going to love it. And when I sent it to him, he did. I just knew it clicked. And the same was true of the other flavor with him. And it was the same is true for Dolly. It was just like, I knew it. And we sent her, again, several other flavors, other ideas, and I knew which one she was going to go for. And she did. It's like magic. It's intuition that you've earned. You know what I mean? Through life and through connecting with people. And also I would never work with people that I don't feel a connection to. I just like, it's never about, we never pay for collaborations. So it's never about like, media or whatever. It's always about the creative process.
So cool. So you're like psychic, but your medium is ice cream, kind of.
Yeah, there you are. Yeah. Yes. I'll tell you about you. No,
I'll tell you.
I think that there is something that seems magical, but I would just go back to your emotion, your spirit, the energy that connects with other people. There is a rationality there. Mm-hmm. It takes a long time to build. It's like being a Jedi, right? It's a long time to build. It's nearly impossible to explain, but it isn't actually mystical or magical, right? You build it, you earn it, and then you execute it and you can do it. You know what I mean? But it is like, that's why painters can paint and people can write poetry or whatever, like it's something you learn how to do over time and action and failure.
Right. We were talking about my frontor, Susie Batiste, before the call, and I just see she started with essential oils with Poopery, like back in the day, just experimenting, a hobby. And she talks a lot about resonance and dissonance and just even the physics behind it, right? We can start to actually wrap science around this. And so I constantly think about woo and the word of, oh, that's woo-woo, and how it really does a lot of the science disservice because there is data behind this too, right?
There is. And, in a culture that is driven by process and predictability, people like me make people feel very uncomfortable. Yeah. But, because it's like, well, we want to go put process around this. And it's like, well, and predictability around this. And it's like, nature, if you spend a lot of time in nature, that it's yes. And on one hand, predictable, also very not predictable. It's very, so then you go back to the use of the word magic and that feels fine too. But what happens is that it's like scary to people, because they, especially in the world of business, which is why I don't love the world of business. It's like, if it's not predictable, then it's not viable. And that's just like, not in my mind, it's just not cool because the more, even, if you take risks, there's going to be mistakes, but you learn so much from those mistakes that it propels you further than if you play it safe, ultimately, as long as you're willing to play the long game. And that's just what I think right now in America, our business is not willing to do.
I agree. I feel like you are more likely to drown in the sea of sameness than get eaten by a shark in new waters type of thing. And I don't know.
So true. It's a good way to put it.
It is. I mean, just the noise and so what's one thing you find yourself learning over and over? It's like this lesson just keeps surfacing.
I mean, trusting myself, and I think that I'm now at a place where I don't care. Like this happened this year to me during COVID. And I was lucky that I had my blow up like right before COVID. So I could stop traveling and pay attention to myself, but I just don't care. I've said it for a long time. I've said, in my mind, and I'll tell you about it if you want, but like in 2015, we had a massive crisis. We had a recall in our company, and not the thing that anybody wants to make happen in a company, not the call you want to get, but we got it. We had to recall everything and it just killed our company. And then we had to rebuild from nothing. And it was really hard for me as a human being to go through that because I was sort of the face of all of it and took responsibility for it as any leader would want to do, but it was also just a tough recovery personally. But I learned in that process this like thing that I say over and over again in my head, which is I don't give a shit about shit I don't give a shit about. And it's just a dumb thing that like I just started saying to myself. But what it really just means is focus on what you care about and what you can affect and like let everything else go. It takes a lot of practice to really do that, which is why it's like almost like a mantra. I don't give a shit about shit I don't give a shit about. Just like I keep saying it. And that is the thing that's like, you just have to get to a point where you do not care at all what other people think, what's going on. And even when it comes to, I don't know, like being a Midwestern woman, it's like, I always want to kind of make people happy. And like, I'm over all of that now. And in doing so, I'm actually able to do more and better and with more love than I've ever been able to do because I come from that perspective of love. You know what I mean? So it's just actually like weirdly like helps. It's shedding the stuff that doesn't, the bullshit. It is something I tend to have to learn over and over and over again. Like when you start to try to make too many people happy, then no one is happy. So if you really want to come from that perspective of love, you have to shed and only care about a few things.
Daily practice, I imagine, just over and over. You got to keep, you never really want to say, I got it, because then it's going to go away, right? So if we were to go back, and you are, what'd you say, it was 1996, 26-ish years ago. And you said you were you're working with Julian, and you got your cayenne essential oils and all that jazz. Before you had that feeling of like, no, this is it, and you went to that dinner party, if you could just go back and say something to yourself, what would you say?
Whoa, what would I say to that person? I think I would just say, trust yourself, because your instinct may not always be right now, but it will always lead you in the right way, in the right direction. And that was something I struggled with, even though when you look back, I really did in aggregate follow my instinct. I've never compromised in such a big way that it derailed me in at least on a long-term or, overall way. But I think that I could have done much tighter job if I had just trusted myself over all of those years. One of the things that happens in these moments is that you take everything that you know, which is why it's important to pursue everything you love, right? All the stuff that lights you up, that makes you curious, because in those things you will find that super passion where you can make something of value to others, right? Through the things that you love, because you need that super passion. Money is a small resource compared to passion, right? And it's also a very insignificant payoff, compared to like a life of passion. Mm-hmm. And so what happens is that you find that place and then you project it into the future. So right then it's just an idea. The idea is ice cream could be better. The idea is take it to a dinner party and see what people say. Well, they love it. But once you start projecting it into the future and then you see how people use it, what it really can be, then that becomes a vision. So for me, it was like, okay, American ice cream has always been my favorite kind of ice cream. American ice cream can be better. I think I can set the standard for it. If I can set the standard of quality in American ice cream, what is the potential and the opportunity? Well, once you decide what that is, then you're locked in. And mm-hmm. now it's like, you can walk out of art school, you can make those bold moves because you're locked into that vision. And so for me, like going back there and saying, trust yourself, stay on the vision quest or whatever to get to that place. And I always have, but it's like, it could have been a slightly more straight line.
Yeah. Yeah.
It never would be straight, but
progress is not linear, but it could have been a little more up and to the right. Yeah. No, I know what you mean. It's getting what I imagine straighter as you gain, more and more mastery as a Jedi.
Yeah. And, I was 22 when I started. I didn't have any education in business, very little education anywhere at all. And like, so I just had to start and go and trust myself. So, I mean, there was that, but at the same time I was, everybody in my life was telling me, not to trust myself, you know what I mean? And so I did anyway, but it was like, it was just tough. I think if I was a guy, they would have been like, you're a genius and keep going. You know what you're doing, blah, blah, blah. It would have been a different message.
Yeah.
But so for me, it was trusting myself against that stream too, which was in itself, its own feat.
Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for sharing your time and your energy and wisdom. And now I want to go get some ice cream. We're talking about it. Talk about moving. Every time I'm going to go on South Congress in Austin and like taste and see if I move. I'm excited to like go
find the one that moves you. Find the one that makes your body like want to like dance just a little bit.
Until I'm dancing and grooving. I love it. Thank you so much, Jeni. This has been awesome.
Thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure to talk about all these big ideas with you.
Hey everyone, thanks for listening to the show. Hit me up on social media to let me know what you think. I'm at Amy Jo Martin on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And I want to hear your Why Not Now moments so I can share them on the show. Just send me a note to whynotnow@amyjomartin.com. For show notes and other offers, you can visit amyjomartin.com/whynotnow. And while you're there, don't forget to sign up for my email newsletter for exclusive content and announcements. A big thanks to Rock Salt Music for all of the tunes by the talented John Coggins, and of course a hat tip to Richard Brewer for editing and producing the show. I'll see you next time, and until then, why not now?